Ayanda Nyathi, who's been at the Bridget Mabantla Justice College for us and joins us live now to give us a far more comprehensive wrap or understanding of everything that the Commission has heard thus far. A very good morning to you yet again, Ayanda. A different sitting today, no witness before the Commissioners or even a legal representative perhaps standing in for an ill witness. Today, it's strictly reading into the record of communication between Mr. Mswati, Sergeant Faninkosi. We also have heard of Kati Somolefe, and we also heard of Mr. Stephen Mutsumi and a one Sean Jacobs.
Indeed, Mfundo, and in fact, Matthew Chaskelson, the evidence leader, has been quite open about how we landed up here. As we had suspected the last time we spoke, we do know that 2 days were set aside for Vusimuzi Matlala's testimony. Because of how things unfolded yesterday, there had to be a last-minute scramble, I think it's quite safe to say, in order to make sure that today is not lost. And to try fill that gap, Matthew Chaskelson then says he had to quickly put together today's testimony, which, as you've mentioned, is the reading into the record of WhatsApp messages involving Swazim Sibi and the many other individuals who are connected to him. And there are different themes, as you've outlined, Mfundo, and perhaps we'll go to the very beginning, where we were told of this exchange that took place between Sergeant Faninkosi, no stranger to this inquiry, and Mr. Msibi. And they were talking, it seems, about a draft letter that needed to have some kind of SAPS letterhead attached to it. We later then find out that this is because there's some kind of effort to get high-tech surveillance devices. In fact, there was a bit of a lesson of what a grabber and a jammer does. All of this, of course, to, I suppose, paint this picture of this effort to try to get these high-tech devices for nefarious means. That at least is the allegation. As we kick off, let's take you back to this part of how things unfolded today, where Matthew Chaskelson was asked by Advocate Sandile Khumalo, one of the commissioners, about what to make of this supposed arrangement where an SAPS letterhead was essentially put on a draft letter that was put together by a civilian. Take a listen.
What are we to make of Sergeant Nkosi signing documents on behalf of SABC and purporting to represent SABC in future agreements with either it's an international organization or international suppliers? What inference are we to draw?
Well, I think the inference is that that's an out-and-out fraud, but it's a fraud to which everyone involved in that project is party. Everyone involved in that project with knowledge of Sergeant Nkosi's letter was also involved. But the only people that we can identify in that regard are Mr. Msibi, who's no longer alive, and Shane or Sean. We don't know who else was aware of this. We don't even know whether the Czech company were aware of who they were dealing with.
Because my concern, we're talking about a grabber here. We don't know what else. I mean, you can see one conduct where he's signing and putting a stamp and force number to allow an international organization to come and make a demonstration to private individuals in South Africa. What if it was weapons and other things that are not authorized by SABC?
We don't know, but it is a very legitimate question, Commissioner. I mean, we did see the exchanges with the man whom he saved as Deputy President Didi Mabuza, who Mr. Mashile, I think, who seemed to have been suggesting an arms deal. We don't know where it ended.
And what does it say about the use of stamps at SABC? I mean, if any captain or constable can just
But I think every captain must have a stamp, just because they have to use the stamp in their official duties. So, for instance, you go into your local police station to get an oath commissioned, the captain uses his stamp to commission your oath. It's how the stamp is used, and of course, a South African looking at that document would think, no, this doesn't on its face come with this on its face doesn't confer the authority of the SABC to deal with a grabber. But someone in the Czech Republic wouldn't have the faintest idea whether this was, how South Africans issue authority at the highest levels of SAPS or not. So the risk is particularly heightened in relation to transactions with foreign countries or with foreign entities.
All right, let's bring in our senior reporter then, Canny Maphanga, who's also been watching developments here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College as we try and make sense, of course, of how this actually falls within the realm of the Maphanga Commission's terms of reference. And I'm tempted, Canny, to take even a further step back, right? For people who weren't following this with much detail, is it worth speaking about what a grabber and a jammer does before we speak about why this is important?
Well, I think I would be just as lost as you are as in terms of the kind of work that you do, but I understand it to be this high-level kind of security that you would use in environments such as COVID.
Right, as you continue, Canny, let me perhaps take this away from you and we'll share a mic so that everybody can hear you. You were just explaining that, it's pretty high-tech devices, essentially, that really raise questions around why they're in the possession of these individuals.
Yes, as I understand it, I'm not really sure of the technical terms of what a grabber is, but we get the gist that this is something that you would use for high-level kind of security, and it's not something that would be afforded to ordinary citizens like you and I, which explains why, if it is true that Sergeant Nkosi allegedly needed to use police resources to start the discussion with a foreign entity or a foreign government about these particular devices. But we see that somewhere down the line, the deal falls away with the expert that would have been providing that information or assisting at least with that particular alleged purported, what would have been agreement with the Czech entity or government, whatever the implication there is. It seems that that deal falls away, and then what it really becomes is an engagement with the Kingdom of Eswatini. And that's where the chats take us, but I'm not sure beyond that what of that particular element would engage the Commission's terms of reference outside of Sergeant Van Nkosi using the South African Police Service's resources, allegedly, and the name in order to give a legitimate look to the request being made, or to create some form of alleged purported agreement between the two parties that were supposed to have some form of an alleged deal. But we see at the end of the text messages that Sean Jacobs rather sends a message saying that he sees that the deal has since fallen apart, and he can assume that that is indeed the case. And all of this is seemingly an interest into not only Sergeant Van Nkosi's conversations with Mr. Msibi, who is nicknamed quote-unquote King Swazi, and is alleged to be part of that Big Five cartel that really gives rise to the allegations that are being explored before the Maphanga Commission. It seems that the Commission has gone further and looked at the late Msibi's communications with other individuals that also seem to be persons of interest before the Maphanga Commission. To some extent, you see Katiso Katie Mulefe featuring, and that's the alleged cartel member that the PKTT had also pounced on, and we saw allegedly the Hawks trying to interfere in that particular arrest. We're seeing messages that reflect the Steve Mutsumi name again. And I think that's a businessman. I'm not sure what the exact details surrounding his profile is, because it hasn't been explored quite fully before the Maphanga Commission, but we have heard his name come up a lot, even to the extent that I remember Major General Lesejo Sonona even being afraid to say his name before the Maphanga Commission. It had to be written on a piece of paper, even though it was on a text by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. So that's where we know that particular name from. We see Carl Phillips of Canny Links, who featured quite prominently in the Major General Faraz Khan and Mr. Saeed communications, insofar as the alleged dealings that the pair had with one another. And I understand that Saeed is also another executive within Canny Links, but in this context you see that Mr. Msibi does a lot of favors for Carl Phillips, such as the Canny Links goods being stolen, and once the person that allegedly stole it found out that Msibi was looking for it, it seems that the goods returned on their own. So that is the kind of assistance you're seeing there. Ekurhuleni featuring M through businessman Zeng Malo and the communications with Mr. Msibi about a tender that seemingly was something that Msibi may have been interested in, and the tender, well, the conversation suggests that the tender had already had a winner, let's put it that way, even though the process was not complete. That's what's inferred in the WhatsApp exchanges. However, the affidavit of Mr. Nxumalo doesn't take that evidence further because he doesn't seem to remember where he got that information from with respect to the communications with Mr. Msibi. So we're kind of all over the place, but it is understood because this had to be put together, I think, overnight because of the fact that alleged cartel member Vusumuzi Kat Matlala finished his evidence yesterday quite quickly and did not face any questioning about his particular evidence. So that's why we're now seeing the messages of Mr. Msibi being placed, or the late Mr. Msibi being placed before the Commission, and the Commission trying to find any links, if any, to its terms of reference. But at the very least, I think the Sergeant Fanny Nkosi alleged deal that collapsed where police resources were used to create some form of an alleged purported agreement is a starting point in terms of these messages.
And I want to take us back to those high-tech surveillance devices, because I think there is a theme that is perhaps becoming clearer about why the Commission would be interested in that. And to assist us in connecting those dots, it's worth going back to a part of today's proceedings, because I don't know if we can call it testimony, it's coming from the evidence leader, where Matthew Chaskelson is, I suppose, trying to crystallize why it would be problematic if these devices did land in the hands of the individuals that you've heard about. Because later on we hear about a company called Dilma Style, which also, essentially sent out a quotation for these devices to an entity overseas. And the question was posed from one of the commissioners around why it would be problematic if, in fact, these individuals, who are civilians at the end of the day, had access to such high-tech devices, given what these devices can apparently do. Take a listen.
Mr. Msibi, Mr. Motsumi, Mr. Molefe, and possibly Sergeant Nkosi are involved. Well, Sergeant Nkosi is certainly involved with Mr. Msibi in one project, and Mr. Molefe are involved in another. The extent to which Mr. Motsumi and Mr. Molefe were involved in the first project is not clear. Anyway, they're involved in a commercial project. The commercial project involves the selling of high-tech surveillance, digital surveillance systems and jamming technology. The three people we're talking about have received some coverage in this commission. Mr. Msibi has been described by General Khumalo, who's the head of crime intelligence, as the then leader of the Big Five organized crime cartel. Mr. Molefe is currently on trial for murder in a matter involving firearms that can be linked to more than 30 other murder scenes in Gauteng in the last 5 years. Mr. Motsumi is someone whose name General Sonona, when he was still head of the Hawks, was too scared to mention. These three men are dealing with foreign companies to get access to grabber technology purporting to represent a state. And then, at least in the case of Mr. Msibi, they seem to be looking to sell that technology to the Eswatini government in that first episode, the first case that we saw. Whether or they didn't manage, it seems, in that case, to sell to the Eswatini government, they may well have managed in this case. We just don't know. But whether or not they are managing to sell the technology to a foreign state, they presumably can also have access to it for their own purposes. They are able to deal with the providers of this technology. They are being invited to sign contracts with the providers of this technology, in the case of Infosys, on the basis that they represent the South African state. This is a worrying state of affairs, a very worrying state of affairs. This is the sort of technology that should only go into the hands of intelligence agencies who are then constrained to use it under fairly strict legislative controls. But what we have here is private parties passing themselves off as representatives of states and trading in this, or trying to trade in this technology.
There you have it, Matthew Chaskelson really trying to, I suppose, zero in on why they have an interest in these devices and their attachment to these individuals, if in fact what seems to have taken place did in fact unfold. Let's bring in once again Canny Maphanga, our senior reporter who's been with us here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College. And Canny, because of how quickly everything had to be cobbled together, we understand that Matthew Chaskelson is not likely to take much more time after this tea adjournment.
He said before the probe that he is not expected to go beyond lunch with this particular evidence of what was on the late CB's phone, as well as Sergeant Nkosi's communications. But I think the theme overall that is being translated here is that all of these persons of interest allegedly seem to have some kind of a link with one another, even if it doesn't engage the Maphanga Commission's terms of reference. But at the very least, this evidence about this purported multinational deal directly deals with the terms of reference, because it was police resources that were allegedly used in order to legitimize what could have been that purported agreement through allegedly Sergeant Nkosi. So that's definitely something that perhaps we may expect him to elaborate further on, because there's more questions surrounding who is this Sean Jacobs, what do we know about these entities, and we expect him to give further evidence on that. And tomorrow the Commission is set to go back to normalcy, I think, with Fadil Adams' subpoena dates being stated as Wednesday the 19th of August. So we expect there that there will be a witness in the witness box, and there'll be a little bit more information for the viewers and the public to chew on in terms of the IDAC stream, because that's really what he's going to be centered on.
All right, Canny Maphanga, thanks very much indeed. Back to familiar terrain, it seems, hopefully tomorrow, if there are no more surprises lurking behind the corner somewhere. That's us for now here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College.